He should be nominated already for the Roberto Clemente Award right now. He should win it, to be honest with you, just because of what he said and what he's doing. He's saving lives, and we're very proud of him.
Alex Cora talking about Jarren Duran. Craig Breslow joining us, Chief Baseball Officer. The Netflix docuseries came out today, and there's been a lot of reaction to how open Jarren Duran has been to some of the challenges he has faced. Alex spoke very well last night about what's in place here within the organization to help guys through that. Talk a little about that. You, as a former player, well know what challenges and what kind of pressure there is in a clubhouse throughout a long season. How important is it for the Red Sox to have that support network there for the team?
Yeah, well, I think we see that it's incredibly important. And, we do have a behavioral health department led by Richard Ginsburg, and we have resources and support for our players and for our staff. But I think Jarren's story reminds us that there's still significant work to be done to get the conversation out in the open. And it's really hard to credit Jarren enough for his willingness to be vulnerable and to talk about this in such an open way. And so we're incredibly proud of that, and that that episode is so unbelievably powerful and inspirational, and hopefully, as Jarren says, that he's able to save even just one person's life.
Have you seen the whole series?
I have.
And just your thoughts on what fans will learn out of this, because it's really compelling stuff. I've seen it as well, and we don't get, even I've been around this team for 20-something years, but I've never been in an office when a guy gets the call, when Cam Boozer finally gets the call. There are those incredible moments that fans never get to see. How cool is it to kind of lift the veil and let them in on some of that?
I think it's probably a lot cooler for the audience than it was for us. This was billed as unprecedented access. That's exactly what it was. I think Greg and his team did a great job of really integrating themselves and embedding themselves in the team. And so I think that fans are going to really come to appreciate what the life is like for baseball players. There's this depiction of professional athletes as living this lavish life, and whether it's Jarren's story or just being exposed to the day-to-day grind that players go through, I think will be pretty stark contrast from what we think the life of a baseball player is.
Considering what you maybe thought about this a year ago when you were embarking on it, are you pretty happy with the final product? Not that you created it, but
right.
You gave into it. The team sort of said, okay, we'll trust where this goes. How do you feel about where it went? Yeah,
I think it's a really compelling story. I think that the pieces came together really well. There are some notable players that feature prominent roles. There's a really inside look into personalities, into family lives, and fortunately, the cringeworthy moments are minimized.
Okay, Garrett Crochet tonight. We got a look the other day in that second start against Baltimore especially. He goes 8 innings for the first time in his career. That's what an ace does, right? That's why you go get a guy like this. To be able to lock him up and know that he's going to be part of this for a while, what does that mean to the Red Sox?
Yeah, I think we all have the luxury of looking forward to him pitching every 5 days for a really long time, and that's exactly right. He's the guy that ends a losing streak. And it's one thing to say, hey, this is what an ace does, but I think we're going to have to remind ourselves not to take that for granted, right? And he's a truly elite talent, and we're really glad that he's going to be here for a while.
I think we showed the list of guys under contract at some point last year, and it was pretty small. Now you start to look, and you've locked up the court. You locked up Campbell. You locked up Crochet. You had a couple big deals last year. You still have guys under control. As you start to look, and you are always looking years beyond the future, how good do you feel as this now starts to come together for the long term, not just for the now?
Yeah, I think the role of the person sitting in my seat is to balance the short and long-term outlooks of the team. And so we're getting there. We're moving in the right direction. Our job is to identify those real cornerstone pieces and try to keep them in Red Sox uniforms for as long as we possibly can. I think we've made some steps, toward that end, but we'll continue to evaluate who are players that we feel like we want to preserve the relationship with.
Christian Campbell, a meteoric rise through the minors last year, and just continues. You talked to people in the clubhouse, just even what he's shown from day one of spring training to where he is now defensively, and how he just continues to learn and get better, and you're getting the results. How excited are you that he's getting the results for the work he has put in?
Yeah, that's one of the most gratifying to encourage a not always on our timelines. It's totally different when you go out there and the hits start to stack up in the first week of the season, and he has some immediate success. And it's a credit to him and the hard work that he's put in, and the coaches around him. And we're super excited that he's going to be here for the next decade, and we still think that there's plenty of development and plenty of growth ahead of him.
Connor Wong goes down to the injury last night. Blake Sable is up. But you went and made that trade for Carlos Narvaez in the offseason. We're going to see a bit of him here. How impressed have you been by what he's done so far?
Yeah, he stepped in as someone who didn't have a ton of major league experience, but has built a great rapport with the coaching staff and the pitching group. And we feel very, very confident in him behind the plate. Has a strong track record of being an above-average defender, and felt like there was some upside in the bat. We've seen that over the last week. Hopefully that will continue. And then in Blake, another guy that we brought over via trade, left-handed thump, and he's made quite a bit of progress in terms of the way that he's receiving the ball, and we're excited about getting him a look as well.
Kyle Teal was a big part of the catching depth. Obviously, you make a deal for Crochet. Obviously, we've talked about the benefits of that, but are you comfortable right now with the catching depth? I know you're probably not comfortable with any depth at any position ever, so that's probably a stupid question. But again, when you assess where you are catching-wise, is there enough depth within the organization?
Yeah, we feel like both of these guys are capable. We've got a veteran in Sebi Zavala in Worcester right now, and also seems like we've gotten some good news with Connor in that hopefully this isn't an extended stay on the IL, and there are some things that he can do to accelerate the timeline and get him back as quickly as possible.
All right, Craig Breslow, star of the new Netflix series, The Clubhouse. Thanks for dropping by. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.